What's up, everybody? Jordan Stewart here from Vover. Thanks so much for tapping into the Vover original show. Just a reminder that if you want to drop your opinions about the episode or respond to the host and guests with your voice, go and download the Vover app wherever you get your apps. Vover, voice over everything. Enjoyed the show.
It's time to level up with Dr. Mondo. Vover. What's good, everyone? It's Dr. Mondo. Welcome to another episode of Level Up. This is a podcast where we talk to people that you admire, people that you look up to. And today's guest is certainly one of those people. We talked to them about stories that maybe didn't make it into their Instagram well-curated feed. We talked to them about stories of dealing with self-doubt, dealing with anxiety, maybe even some depression, some grief, some family stuff. I mean, we go through things, but often in the society, in this world, we don't talk about it enough. And I think that that's a huge reason why so many people struggle with mental health, is that we don't talk about it enough. We're trying to normalize it here on this podcast. We're actually trying to convince you through this storytelling that even successful people go through mental health struggles. And part of what makes them continue to level up is the fact that they address it and they talk about it. They get help, they get support. That's exactly what we'll dive into yet again in this podcast. Today's guest is part of the Vover family. She is a host and a producer in sports and entertainment in Los Angeles. She's much more than that. I'll have her explain what the much more is. It's Justine Brown. Justine, how are you?
Answering the what's more is the question that I avoid, actually. So we'll just start there. I don't know. I know avoiding things with a therapist is a whole nother ball game, but
to be clear, this is not therapy, although it's about 95% like therapy. So no, I'm just joking.
Good test run for me. Great.
Yeah.
Going into this, you said you weren't going to tell me what we were doing, and I'm starting to wonder if I should have asked.
You maybe should have asked. But this actually, to be fair, that this is not the first time that you've been thrown into something with me in particular. You were thrown into a text message thread. That's the story I was going to tell. That our friendship started over being thrown into a text message thread around like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. That never sounds good, but we were thrown in by our friend Jimmy Spencer. And I don't even remember, like, what was the setup? He just like, here, go. And it just became the most engaged random text message thread that I've ever been thrown into at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, a mutual friend that I obviously trust to be like, here's a good person, I'm putting you on text, because I instantly was like, okay. And then like, he's like, I'm not going to explain to you. I'm going to explain to you. Well, let him explain to you. And I was like, this is a roller coaster, but I'm in. And I think you were like, even I'm confused and he's introducing me. And so kind of just set us on good ground. I feel like I've always felt like one of my strengths, since I've been feeling we're going to talk about more of my weaknesses. One of my strengths is people are always like, you're really familiar really quickly. And so like, I think instantly people are like, oh yeah, we're friends. We go way back. And I feel like that was our text thread in a nutshell.
It was. No, exactly. And I think that is that there is that quality to you. I felt like I knew you right off the bat. We've only had one other conversation. It's funny too, because right before we logged on here, when I was looking to see how specifically to introduce you, I did what we all do. And I went to your LinkedIn and actually someone that you worked with on the Clippers gave you the same recommendation. Justine just seems to find a way. They wrote you like a recommendation. They said just that, like that you are able to quickly, there's something about like long-lasting friendships that you build because you quickly build relationships with people. I'm just telling you what your LinkedIn
I just would like
to
clarify for anybody listening and you that I have not touched my LinkedIn in like, I don't know, years. It's been on my list of things to do, but I'm like, I don't use it, but it's been on my list of things to do for a while, is to fix whatever it says. So I don't know what it says, but I also didn't know I had glowing recommendations. So
no, you got glowing recs. No, it's all good. Everything's good out there. And again, like just to really set the record straight, Justine is she's being a good guest because she's so often the host that she just said, I'll be the guest on this podcast without necessarily knowing what the format is. This is not therapy per se. And we talk about strengths just as much as we talk about weaknesses. I mean, I think that's part of it, is like stuff that we've been through. When you think of your story and you think of the fact that obviously you've had success in your career, what are some things that people would be surprised to know from a mental health standpoint And that's broad. Like that could be self-doubt. Like I
Yeah.
said, it could be insecurities that you've struggled with that, you've had to deal with, but you haven't maybe talked publicly about it a lot.
Yeah, I would say things that come to mind first that I think it takes turning 30 and suddenly being like, I don't know, like I know 30 is not 60. I'm not like full of all this wisdom, but like we have this one life to live and we have us to live it for. And it's not to please other people. It's not to do what somebody thinks you should do. And so I think a big part for me has been A, not being a people pleaser, but B, not putting my worth in being useful to other people. And so I would say like I've always dealt with not fully owning what I know I'm good at or what I know I'm capable of, being like, hey, yeah, they can do that, or yeah. I'm actually decent at that, or I know how to do that. But with other people, I'm like selling them constantly. Like I will connect everybody's dots. I will make people's dreams come true. I fully believe in my friends and their abilities and their talents. And I'll be the first one to be like, yo, this person's dope. Trust me. And I think I've had times where I'm like, dang, I don't feel like people put me on like I put them on. But I'm like, also they're over here like, what do you do? Like, we know you're great. Like, and I'm over here like, oh, I can kind of do that and I can kind of do this. So I guess whatever that is, if it's underselling or people pleasing or imposter syndrome or whatever it may be, I would say like those type of things that I finally feel like now I'm like, what do you want to do? What do you want to be? Who do you want to assert yourself as? And like actually saying it out loud and be like, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm good at. This is what I don't want to do, really came around. And I will say the pandemic super sucked. Yeah, but then helped. Yeah. Like there was definitely a year or more that I'm like, it's just me. But I would say during the pandemic, everything shutting down and being in this industry, entertainment loves to shut down anyway. Like, I don't know if you've ever been here in December, but ain't nothing getting done. Like we're done. And so
I've noticed.
Yeah. So the entertainment industry shutting down, and furthermore, being under a lot of restrictions, because on top of COVID restrictions, you have unions. So like they're protecting their people. So like, yeah, there was no work happening. And then there's people who I think I'd given a lot to, who all of a sudden I was like, where are they? And vice versa, the people who were there, like the people I know I can count on, like nobody can tell me anything about them because I know who my people were during this and how I got through it. And I will say that was the first time that I was like, I've always been an optimistic, happy, wake up happy person. I've definitely had bouts where I'm like, man, I feel like crap this week, or like we all have our like small bouts of depression. But like, as far as being like, I don't know what I'm doing. Is this it? Is it over? What was I doing? What was my worth? What was I doing? You know, like what were my goals?
Yeah.
And for a while, I was like, everybody's like, you know, you'll see the good that comes out of bad things. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And then here I am, and I'm like, oh my goodness. Yep. Like asserting myself, knowing who has to look out for me. And that's not being selfish. I mean, it is being selfish, but not in a way that's like step on everybody else. It's just more like, if you don't look out for you, if you don't prioritize yourself, other people aren't going to do it either.
It's assertive. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think I just was like, I got to do that. I got to know what I want, and I have to walk in my own lane, because ultimately when you walk in your own lane, that's when things open up. And so I came into this year saying, I'm not going to go anywhere I'm not supposed to be. I'm not going to do anything that's not for me or what I'm supposed to do. And I'm going to stay in my path. And pretty quickly, like all the things I've dreamed of or wanted or whatever kind of slowly started coming together, and these platforms started coming. And for me, the blessing is at this age and with this wherewithal of the pandemic and all that, I'm like, it's all here today, gone tomorrow. And I'm going to be grateful and happy for what I have, and know that everything is cyclical. And you know, like, as long as the sun comes up the next day, we're going to be all right.
The story that you tell of you getting to that point, was there a breaking point? Like, do we have to be at a point where Earth stops, you know, or LA shuts down in order for us to realize that we're people pleasing and that we need to start finally advocating for what it is we need? Do we have to be burned so bad that, you know, we just can't take the pain any longer, and we say, this is my rock bottom, I'll never do that again? Or does it happen sometimes just, you know, kind of organically through time?
I would like to hope that it doesn't take this, because I mean, I hope this never happens again. Therefore, I hope people can find it other ways than a worldwide pandemic. But for me,
waiting for a long time.
Yeah,
well,
like I
who
hope
knows?
I hope not my lifetime,
yeah.
and I hope not your lifetime. Knock on wood. But I think for me personally, I'm like a go, go, go. Like the reason my voice sounds like this right now is because the world opened back up and I had things to do and I don't know how to stop. And I told myself after the pandemic, I'm like, wow, I like this, slowing down and stopping. Like, I don't want to go back to that life. And I didn't do a great job with that last week, but I had good things happening. So all of it was like good busyness. But I hope it doesn't take that. But for me, I am always going and I'm always saying yes. And if I say yes, I feel like I got to show up. Like, I don't like to be flaky and I don't stop. And I'm an extremely extrovert and I'm the youngest child. And I had never lived alone until the pandemic. So I've always had family, roommates, etc. And so all of a sudden
19 kids, cats, whatever.
Yeah, my 18 kids. They don't usually stay with me, but
visitation on the weekends,
terrible.
sure.
But yeah, and so it took for me sitting down and stopping. And I think people can slow down however they want, whenever they want. And I think we should do it a lot more because even when we slow down now, we still scroll, we still look, we don't just
I know.
stop. But like there was nothing happening. And so I was like, oh, there's peace to this eventually. There was not, a lot of it was not peace. A lot of it was like, what the heck? And like, but when it came down to me, myself and I at a house with only me, myself and I to rely on, I was like, yeah, like if it comes down to you needing you, like you have to show up.
Ooh.
And
yeah,
I don't think that I was doing that. And now I feel a little different.
I feel like it sounds like a lot different. I think I'm excited to hear you declare kind of what you've been declaring to the world and to others, because you've then, I'm not like a law of attraction guy per se, but what I will say is that I think it's powerful for us to put the intention out there of like, this is what I stand for. This is who I am. This is what I'm meant to do. Yes, I am gifted at certain things and this is what I'm really good at. And, I think there's something powerful about not only the act of doing that from a self-respect and self-worth standpoint, but also from a standpoint of then people know how to kind of be able to utilize you. Because like you said, people could like you all day long, but they won't know how to utilize you if you're not clear on that. I mean, I'm curious for you, before I find out what that is, because I'm curious about it, the people pleasing. Like I relate to that. Like I remember, why do you think you were people pleasing? I know for me, it was being an overweight kid in a weight shaming society that felt like, man, I got to make everyone laugh or entertain everyone, because if I don't, like, damn, I don't want them to start making fun of me for my weight, So I remember people pleasing from a young age as a way to just like kind of survive in those ways. Was it a family dynamic thing? Was it something about, you and peer relationships? What was it that recruited you into people pleasing?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like I actually, our only other conversation was just a phone call, but it got deep and I'm like more than open to going to therapy and doing all that because I kind of do want to know some of these triggers. And for like my 20s, I was like, it's all good. Like, I was like, I don't think I thought that deep. And then I was just like, I'm happy. So I'm good. And now I'm like, I want to know what makes me tick the way that I tick. And so I think about that. And it's hard for me to put my finger on because I was the youngest child. So many times the world did revolve around me. I mean, except when it didn't. Like, like if my mom and my brothers watching me, I'd be like, they don't even feed me, I wasn't neglected, but you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah,
it definitely wasn't revolving around me when it came down to my two older brothers watching me. But at the same time, like, I don't know, for lack of a better term, like I was definitely a popular kid. Like I played sports, I was friends with everybody, but I definitely always, I think back to somewhere in there, I felt somewhat inferior. Like whether it was like, I had the best friend that the person was always going to have the crush on them, or I had the whatever. In some ways didn't care because like I like being the friend. Like I like being I liked being the friend to everybody. I liked being the one that like could get along with everybody, kind of like the one who could bring two worlds together. So I don't know if it was built in that or like where it was that I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. And it kind of breaks my brain every day that I'm like, why did you always feel like you had to play smaller than everybody else? When like I think people who know me will say like, psh, like you're the one we're going to call every time. Like Justine makes it happen or whatever it is. And I'm like, you can't see yourself. Like only other people can see you. You can't see yourself in the mirror. So you're always like, I don't know what people see, but I don't fully see it.
And sometimes they tell us and we still don't internalize it because the story that we tell about ourselves is so strong. It has no room for the possibility of what they're introducing. We're like, nah, I don't know about that. I think the why is a bonus, right? It's like, if we know why we do it, it's great because we love things to make sense. Like, oh, it makes sense. This is why it happened. But I think I mean, even what you laid out makes a lot of sense too. And I think regardless of the why, what's more important is the now and what you're doing now. And I love it. I think it's a great place to even start to kind of like, put a bookmark in this conversation is what have you started to declare to the world? Like now when someone asks you, like what do you bring to the table and what do you do? And like, what are you here to do? How do you answer that a little differently than you would have before?
Well, I think like one thing is like you said, getting to the why, like, and I think something like therapy would help with that, to be like, okay, I got to the why, but I am a self-reflective person. So like anything I do, like I have a lot of self-awareness. Like even the most annoying things I do, I'm like, you're doing that annoying thing right now. Like stop doing it. Like I'll think about it later. Where I've met people where I'm like, I don't know if they have any self-awareness. But I think what has changed for me, I mean, it's crazy. Like if I even talk about my journey, like I started in sports broadcasting and sports journalism. I knew I was good at it. I knew I could interview people. I know that I don't feel intimidated. Like I think people are such human beings that like, if tomorrow somebody's like, you have an interview, you're interviewing Obama, I would be like, and I'm like, all right, game time. And I'd sit down and do it. Like it's still just like a human being I have to have a conversation with. And I think that's my strength.
I love that.
And I think me saying that, even being like, I know that given, like it might take a couple of warm-ups, but I know given the biggest platform, I could do it. So I was in that world and kind of quickly was like, it's a boys club. I don't feel like I'm ever going to see my worth here, for lack of a better word, or I don't know, like things like that are like, I don't know, like I wanted to get out of that. And then I did this management thing, and this is why I can't answer the question. I did digital marketing, I did management, I did all this stuff. And it kind of felt like I was doing it. And to a lot of people, like, you were really doing it with some of the biggest people in the world. And then I got back into doing like some journalism, some broadcasting. I started hosting a podcast, and then like we'll cut to now. But I was like, once again, I was like myself again. My best friend was like, you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And I kept thinking like, is this superficial? Like I want a platform to be able to help other people, to be able to change other people, to be able to like do something other than just have superficial things in this world. And this industry, and often many times, is very superficial. And once I put out my own personal podcast, which just was a couple of years ago now, I had people like DMing me all the time, like, can we get more of these? Crazy fear of failure, I stopped putting them out. But I had people being like, when are you bringing it back? They still ask me. My last episode was two years ago at least. And they're like, this spoke to me, this touched me. And I started realizing, like, if you walk in your purpose, in your path, like the doing things for other people, the purpose, all that presents itself. Some people choose not to use it, whether that's money to bless other people, whether that's a platform to make an impact, whatever it is, you'll be given the platform. It's like, how do you choose to use it? And so I think like now I look at literally this year, like one of the things I want to do is like get back into the hosting, get back to doing things, started doing stuff right here on Vover. I had somebody message me like a week ago, was like, yo, I knew you did this. Like I knew you did NBA and basketball, but I didn't know you did it. Like I didn't know you knew it like this. And that's on me. Like all the people I talk to every day are like, no, this is exactly who does this. Like she knows exactly what. And I'd be like, oh no, da da da. So I started being like, I do that. I'm pretty good at it. Let me know if you need me. And then the biggest thing that happened most recently that feels like so aligned with my purpose and so aligned with like, if I just stay in my lane and stay focused on me and what I need to be worried about, people are just going to see you. I had somebody reach out. I did something for Nike, and I had somebody reach out after that who knew me and was like, hey, we want to gauge your interest in doing something. And I was like, okay. She ended up being like, it's our newest show on sneakers, which I'm a sneakerhead. I'm a sneaker aficionado. She's like, it's called Player Edition. So you sit down and talk with the players about off-court stuff, about sneakers, about, conversation. We just think you'd be perfect. We already concepted it. The whole team thought of you. Wow. Me. This is the biggest brand in the world. They could have thought of anybody.
But
some people might be like, it's some show on sneakers. I'm like, this is the biggest deal in the world. And every person who knew me, my best friends, anybody who knew me was like, you manifested this. Like you have talked about wanting to tell, like my roommate from college posted on her story and it was a paragraph. And she's like, I've listened to this girl talk about this and this for so long and know these human beings and say, I want people to see them as more than just whatever athletes, whatever. I want to see them as human beings and talk about sneakers, with the biggest brand in the world. And I'm just like, what? All it took was me actually owning it and actually speaking it out loud and actually saying who I was and what I could do. And somebody else saw it. And not only did she see it, she's like, I'm going to put you on, which I think is dope of other people and especially other women. Like for us, the way we could, if I told her if women get together and support each other, there's nobody that can stop us. And she's like, I see you. We're getting behind you. We're putting you right here because you're the person we're looking for. And I was like, what? So long answer to whatever the question was you asked. But I do want to say one last thing that I think my my epiphany or my learned thing, like I said, in the last year, which I think for me was the hardest year. And I know that's not minimizing anybody else's pain, because I think for almost all of us, it was maybe our hardest year, but all for different reasons. But I think what I learned is none of us to beg and have to ask and be like, please, please, please give me this opportunity. Let me knock down this door. Nobody wants to have to do that. We all want to be thought of. And so I think I've spent so much time being like, I have all these relationships, all these amazing people. Why doesn't anybody think of me? But I think the part that's missing and what we have to do is, in order to be thought of, you have to know who you are to be thought of. You have to know who you are. And if they don't know who you are, if you don't know who you are, how are they supposed to know who you are to even think of you?
Emily is my social media manager. Emily, when you listen to this podcast, this message is for you. That's the quote right there. Yeah, just put that one in there, and then put her IG on it too. What's your IG so she
Justine's
can add you on?
Life. JUSTINESLIFE.
She's dropping so many nuggets of wisdom. I hope we got that last one. It'll be on a bulletin board. It'll be on a carousel. You'll see it soon. Justine, part 2's coming. You've committed to it now. You have to fill out your strengths finder. Then you got to email homie back. And then, we got a few things. We got a few things that are on the agenda. But this was great. And I appreciate you coming on. Shout out to the Vover family, Ben Cruz, Brett Rowe. Who am I missing? Who else from that's the Vover squad?
Yeah, that's my guys, Brett and Ben. Yeah, shout out to them.
Yeah, I mean, there's others too.
Ben,
we
Brian,
love all of you, but
the bees.
Okay, Brian's too. I don't know you, Brian, but shout out to Brian. If you got a B, then you can work for Vover. I appreciate you coming on. Come back again. And where can people find your podcasts?
They could find, I do on Vover right here. I do WNBA on Monday, on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then there are, I don't even know, I believe 10 episodes of a podcast called Show Me Your Friends. And that's on Apple Music, Spotify, all the above. And those are evergreen. It's actually with a lot of different athletes and people. Allison Felix, they're all my good friends. Allison Felix, Candace Parker, Arian Foster, Randall Cobb, Brescia Webb, Jonathan Kite. Anyway, a bunch of people, and they are evergreen. And also saying it right here, so this is accountability, is I do want to bring it back and I want to get those going again. So if you like it, subscribe, and hopefully you'll see more. And if you don't, DM me and hold me accountable.
There it is. Look at that. She's setting lots of intention.
Oh, and sneakers. Nike. Sneakers on Thursdays for my show. Boom.
Amazing. Appreciate you. And I'm very proud to hear about your story. It's amazing and it's inspiring. Yeah, we all need to do what it is that you've been doing more recently, and you'll continue to do it. So the opportunities will continue to open up. Justine Brown's our guest today. Make sure you subscribe to Level Up with Dr. Armando. Until next time.
All right. Thank you.
It's time to level up with Dr. Armando.